Sometimes it happens. Not understanding, but when you make rotation, you do that.
It's too cold. It's too cold.
Okay, it's time to get started. So we need a jabber scribe and a note taker. Hello? Can we get started, please? We need a jabber scribe and a minute taker. Thank you. Need someone to take minutes, please. You're going to do it? Thank you, Max. Okay, a reminder that we're under the IETF note well. If you're not familiar with this, please get familiar before you speak. Posted the agenda a couple weeks ago. Didn't see any abashes on the list. Are there any now? Okay. So we have 4 documents that are with the.
Hey Russ, one thing. So we had this. I did a presentation a while ago, which was not a non-working draft about a key update for 5480. It's not on the list, so I didn't think it actually had to be on there because this is updates in the draft driver. So 5 seconds at the end if you got it.
Okay. So we have 4 documents that are with the ISG or the RC editor. I'm unaware of anything on the first 3 that needs to be reported. are there, well, maybe I'll just do it this way. Quinn, you have anything on either of the Shakes documents? No? Okay. There's nothing on the HashSig doc, and we had AD review on the, nope, wrong document, so nothing on that one either.
So it's Roman Genilio. So I think on those 4, they're all actually with the editor.
Yep, I think that's right.
Through.
I think that's exactly right. I got it confused with the Seaboard document for a moment. Right. Okay. Right. Okay, so we have one working group document where we have active discussion we need to have, and then we're going to, I think Bernie's going to brief that in a minute. And then we have some things that are being considered for charter. That charter, I believe, is on the first telechat in December. So we're going to continue to work on those, assuming that's going to pass. And then we have some other business if time allows. We have a very short meeting today, so we want to make sure we get to that. The first thing then is Bernie. Yep. You may if you wish, but I find it doesn't work. Try it, see what it does.
It works.
Good.
Good. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Bernie Höneisen.
Get closer.
Closer. Okay. Now you can hear me. My name is Bernie Höneisen, and I will talk about header protection requirement and use cases. We have been talking already during 2 IETFs about the topic, so this time we're not anymore going to the details of the requirements. It will be rather a summary of that. Quick recall what you're talking about. On the left side, we have a typical email, like we have a header, the orange part, and the content, the green part. The content can be protected by the means we have. The headers usually cannot be protected, or the header section can usually not be protected. And SMIME 3.1 says, okay, put the whole message and drop it inside another one, which is then the red header that cannot be protected, but all the rest can be protected, including the original headers, like the orange ones here. So this is just like to remind you what we're talking about. Then we made a document, drafting requirements and use cases based on the feedback we got last time and some other feedback. We did the following things. Moved the implementation considerations to appendix because this is kind of really early work in progress and may up in another document that is talking about the solution. Then simplified one requirement. This was about header fields that should not be included in the clear text or that are not included in the clear text. Then added a new requirement that will also be on the next slide as an open issue that we may close. It's about the case where encryption is only applied without signature, that how to deal with that. And then we added one example of one implementation doing header protection, which is the PEP implementation, and explained that a bit more, added more information on this BCC discussion we had last time. That's one of the outcomes from last time. You remember that for BCCs, we have to produce at least 2, sometimes 3 different kind of messages that have BCC to preserve the original purpose of the BCC. And the abstract was shortened and other editorial changes. That's just for information. Now I have the slide with the open issues. I collected 4 open issues, of which the last one is a bit broader. So the first one I already mentioned is, are we now clear that whatever we document here in the encryption only case, so the case where it's only encrypted, we are not saying anything for the sending side because it's not really a recommended state, but we are saying something about if we receive such email and how we treat that, basically a documentation of the receiving side. Is that the common understanding in the room, or is it not? Or can we close this open issue? Nobody wants to comment on this, so I presume this is the conclusion of the discussion of this issue, and it will be like this. Good. Then the next one, we had one requirement that was not clear whether it should be in or not. Like, do we want to require a single format that covers all protection levels, like signed only or signed and encryption, which are left? Do we want a single format, or is it okay if it's a should, or should it be a must? Or don't we want to talk about that at all? Are there any opinions on this?
Hi, this is Daniel Kahn-Gilmore from the ACLU. I think if we only define signed-only messages, then we are missing a big chunk of what people want this for. I think if we define encryption only without signing, we are also missing a major piece. So I think this document needs to have both signatures over clear text messages as well as encrypted messages.
Encrypted messages with signature or without signature?
So how do I put this? The receiving end is going to receive messages that are encrypted whose signatures they cannot validate, simply because we are terrible at validating signatures effectively. There's just too many error cases. So yes, we will need to handle the case where your message is encrypted, but the signature cannot be validated.
Okay.
But I don't think we should be encouraging people to create encrypted messages that are not signed.
Okay, that would be in line with point 1. Was your I still don't, I cannot assign your comment. Was it on the second point or on the first point?
Let me try to do a clarification. This requirement was about the way we do header protection will be done the same way for signing an encryption case. We don't want 2 different ways of doing this.
Yeah,
I think it's more of an implied assumption. So I hope nobody can test this, but this is just to confirm.
Okay.
Yeah, is this one? Yeah, am I right?
Yeah, that's what
Okay,
you,
good.
yeah. Okay, so I see no resistance to keep that in. And it should be probably on a should basis for the time being. Okay, so any more comments on the point 2 here, on the issue 2? So then the issue 3 is a bit more difficult. Actually, that was I referring to before. We left it open. Russ started an email discussion, which nobody was really engaging in. To what extent we are like addressing the backward compatibility requirements. And not sure whether we get anything out today, which we didn't get out last time, but maybe I should show it. It's on my backup slides. It's basically about these requirements. And we are pretty clear on the B1, but all the rest is a bit unclear whether we should do this or not. Basically, it's about feature negotiation kind of stuff. Like, do we need to tell other clients what kind of stuff we support? And one issue was like, if you have different clients reading the same mailbox, you end up not being in a clear area. So, are there any comments on this? Or what should we do with that? How much of this should we address here?
Alexei, I think
these two well, this is sort of two types of issues, distinguishing between forwarded and wrapped and capability negotiation. I think we'll get to them, but I think they're probably simpler issues that the main choice we need to make about how we protect the header. And once we make the choice, it will be much easier to decide, which way it's going to be addressed.
That's kind of true, yeah.
This is Daniel Kahn-Gilmore. So I think that this is the main sticking point that we're running into in thinking about ways to address header protection. And in particular, just to be clear, backward compatibility means a legacy client that is capable of reading the message, but maybe doesn't know about the header protection scheme that we settle on. What happens for them when they receive a message that has protected headers?
Mhm.
That is the specific situation, and I do think that that's a relevant factor for making a decision about how we do this.
Yeah. So should we just leave that still open and decide later what we need? Is that the conclusion of the room?
I think most of the discussion we will have today is sort of related to this, and it's variation of this, UI issues and
okay. So leave it for now. So issue 3 will be postponed. Then what I would like to know is of those people who have read the draft and know what kind of requirements are in, do we have a complete set of requirements, and are there requirements that need to be adjusted? So first question again, who has read the draft from to the end? That's about double as last time. There were about 3 hands or something?
Like 2.
Yeah, okay.
Ross, can I ask you a question?
You may.
What do you think we should do with the requirements part? Is it just helping us to make a decision? Do you want to last call on the requirements even if we don't publish the document? What do you want to do as a chair?
I don't think the requirements are helping us make decisions at this point. I think that we need to propose solutions to go forward and have the discussion from that perspective. I think the requirements got us to a good place where we are now, but let's focus on getting a solution that everybody can live with. I think it's going to be a balancing act, as we've just heard. And so can we find a balance point that we can all live with, or we're all equally unhappy with?
Right.
Okay. So, yeah. Shall we then go to the next slide, or do you have another comment? So,
to the answer of should we publish it, I think it'd be fine to leave it as an appendix to the final solution document.
Yeah, that works for me. Okay, so the next 2 slides will be probably causing some more lively discussions. It is one aspect that actually triggered these things. Not the only one, but one aspect. We already had some comments on the mic on this. Basically, how do we deal with rendering issues at the receiving side? Alexei's term for this was weird artifacts. So some situations that the receiving users are confused, or how do we help broken clients that cannot handle encapsulated messages and thus also not the forwarded messages, because it's basically, it appears to be the same on the MIME layer. So how do we help them? And what we're talking about is some messages you receive an empty message. In best case, you see there is an attachment, and sometimes you're able to open that attachment, sometimes not. And these kind of things, they have been discovered some time ago. Not sure whether all of these discoveries are still apply, or whether there has been some improvements in clients, because they anyway need to fix this for forwarded messages. So that's what we assume, that there's a problem in that area. So how do we deal with that problems is we can tell the broken implementations fix it. Because if you cannot show, or if you cannot display forwarded message properly, and of course, then you can also not display the encapsulated messages properly. This is like one way to solve it. And the other one is we are making a new standard that helps the broken implementation, or like that overcomes their weaknesses. So I call it the workaround to the broken implementation, which some people in the room probably don't agree that's a workaround, but I see it this way. The clients are broken, and are we fixing the clients, or are we going to do it that the clients don't make this anymore? Like, are we fixing something in the format that the clients don't do this weird artifacts anymore? So I think I finished the slides before you give your comment.
So I just wanted to, I think you were referring to me when you said some people in the room don't think this is a workaround. So I was going to explain my perspective on why I think it is a workaround, but if you'd rather finish the slides, we can do that.
Okay, I didn't speak out any particular, but
Okay.
I just made some assumptions. Okay, so this workaround, actually he was one of the key participants of this workaround. It's known as memory hole, or nowadays as legacy display, you say. So the workaround suggests a new MIME node that contains the protected headers in a structure. So it's not like putting the whole message in a wrap. It's putting like splitting up the message in headers and content, and make two MIME attachments. I hope I explained it correctly. Otherwise, you can correct later if it's not correctly explained. In any case, it means it's a deviation from the current MIME standards, which says like you wrap the whole message in. It would allow, depending on the interpretation, it would allow also such things, but this is not like how it has been designed earlier. So the current MIME standard says you take the whole message and encapsulate it. So the conclusion more or less at this time is we need more research, in particular on the receiving side. One thing is, if you do such a workaround, what kind of problems causes this? We already know of some impacts on MIME libraries, especially if you don't write them on your old libraries, if you use some and you need to adjust them and so on. This, I call them as well side effects, have been discovered. And also like if we do this memory hole approach, or then there may be, or there are other weird artifacts. Whether or not they are worse or better, I don't know at this time, but still, also some clients do not display well what we would do in a workaround as described by the draft mentioned above. And we need to update the existing research that has been done earlier on the weird artifacts, so like on the clients that do not behave well when header protection is applied as it's defined in SMIME. I hope I could provide a good summary and open the discussion about this topic, how we go on.
Hi, Daniel Kahn-Gilmore. So I'm one of the authors of the draft that describes the legacy display part up there. So thank you for including that and mentioning it. I'm not sure how many people have read the draft autocrypt lamps protected headers up there. Is it people up for raising your hand if you've read that draft? Okay, so
the same.
relatively small number as well. So just to be clear, that draft just describes two different things that are used in conjunction to try to offer a form of header protection. One thing is basically placing the MIME headers that you care about at the top of the primary MIME part that's sort of the cryptographic payload, and it describes how to find the cryptographic payload. That's how those are the protected headers. And then it has this additional legacy display part that is intended to provide visibility to an obscured subject line in an encrypted email. It does not stick all of the additional protected headers right? Every header is protected in the sense that it is within the cryptographic envelope, including message ID and things that the user is never exposed to. But the only things that show up in the legacy display part are the things that the user would typically be expected to see. We call them user-facing headers in that document. So that legacy display part is really only to make sure that an obscured user-facing header is visible to the user of a legacy client. That is a client that's capable of decrypting the messages, and but doesn't know about protected headers. So the goal is explicitly backward compatibility for that part. But that part is not intended to be treated specially by the receiving client. The only actual special thing that the client that a non-legacy client does when it sees a legacy display part is hide it, because it actually knows what the actual protected headers are by looking in the MIME structure of the received message. So I just wanted to point out that this legacy display mechanism is one piece of a broader puzzle for how this stuff fits together. I would appreciate more comments on the document. It will get updated again shortly. It's currently documented for PGP MIME because that's where it's actively in use. There are multiple implementations in the wild. But I believe it is compatible with SMIME, and I will be expanding it to cover SMIME in the next version. Okay. I should be clear, I also welcome additional contributors to that draft. So if folks are interested in it, I'm happy to work with you all. Okay.
Right. So
Who are you?
Alexei, still. I think this slide and the previous slide that Bernie showed is trying to get to the sticking point we're at. It looks like the only way we can make progress is to analyze how big of impact legacy display issue is with wrapping messages, as well as memory hole approach, and as well as look at APIs and their limitations in open source projects and other things. I know it's somewhat open-ended question, how far do we look, how many implementations we evaluate, but it would be nice at this point to collect both screenshots, trying to send this header protected messages to old clients and see how they display, to see how bad the problem is, and for people to report issues with API, how difficult it is for them to handle on the receiving side, both approaches.
So I think maybe one approach to doing that is to be a little more crisp in the question, and then ask maybe through SurveyMonkey or something like that on the list for people to look at their own clients and report what they see.
Yeah, and maybe we sort of do a mini interop type thing.
That's what I mean. If you have a test message of choice A and a test message of choice B.
Sure.
This is DKG. So in draft autocrypt lamps protected headers -01, there are test messages. And if anybody wants to try to, and those test messages work from they are OpenPGP, PGP MIME messages, and they can be decrypted by the secret keys that are available in the reference draft. That draft refers to another draft that has some sample OpenPGP secret keys and OpenPGP certificates that are capable of verifying the signatures and decrypting those things. So if anybody has an email client that they use or that they work on, or just that they know of and have access to, that can deal with PGP MIME messages and they want to test those things, I would love it if you could test it and send back a screenshot to the list to be even more specific, or a pointer to the screenshots. I will try to collect those if they come in on the list. But so we have test vectors, and I aim to create test vectors for SMIME messages as well. As I said, the next revision of the draft, I will happily work with anybody who wants to make SMIME test vectors.
if it helps me, in my email client, which is webmail based, I can generate the type of messages, so it might be easy for me to just if
Great.
people want to volunteer so that I send them messages and they send back screenshots and describe, oh, this crashed my client, or this didn't display, or this is truncated. I think this would be very useful at this point.
Right. We do need to do this for SMIME because that's what the charter is here. Don't mind helping the other community along as well, but that's what the focus needs to be.
Yeah.
If we can just have the test messages and have a discussion about what the user experience is with each of the approaches to find that equally unhappy point.
So the other question that Alexei asked, so one of them was, how do legacy clients deal with these messages? And the second question that he asked was, how do the libraries deal with them? So this addresses Bernie's question here about adverse side effects on MIME libraries.
Right.
And I'm wondering if we can't ask that as a more specific question as well, right? So we said, I think in this case, we want test vectors. For the UI, we want test vectors and basically screenshots.
Yep.
Right? So my question is, what is the question we are asking for MIME libraries?
Yeah, so the same test messages could be used. The question is, what's the response you want back?
Yeah, and sometimes you can imply the answer from how it's displayed or not displayed, and sometimes you might need to dig a bit further, right? So the answer might not be obvious. So I think, for example, one issue might be if people have a limit on how big this header can be for memory keyhole approach, that's arguably it's a bug, but if it truncates it, then it would be nice to know and who does it or things like this, right? So yeah, I don't.
So actually, sorry, the question about the UI for legacy clients says, what do legacy clients do? Right? We all acknowledge that the legacy clients will be with us forever because this is email, and we just want to know what they do, so we know what kinds of things we are emitting. But the MIME libraries question is more, I think, a question of, do we think that existing mail user agents will be able to do something better with this than what the legacy clients do, right? Will you be able to make the next version of your mail user agent actually work with these messages, these protected messages, in a better way, right? What is the upgrade path? And that's a different question from like, how is your current MIME library choking on this? So I would like to
Well, I think it does matter if it's causing a crash.
Yes, right. You're right. So so that's one piece of it. But the other piece of it is like, can we work with it? Right. When Krista spoke with us, I think it was 2 sessions ago, she identified that working with the MIME library that they had was like, in more detail, was problematic, that they had to actually go like fix something in the MIME library. But I don't understand what that constraint was, and I don't know how to ask someone to articulate that constraint.
Yeah, one has to implement to actually understand what problem she ran into. I would like to bring the discussion another aspect. I don't know how many SMIME implementations do we have in the world, and is this really an issue for SMIME implementations we have? So far we know that this has been a problem with PGP MIME, but I don't know about concrete SMIME cases. Maybe you have an answer?
Well, we have at minimum Thunderbird and Outlook. I think we have Gmail. We have iOS client is SMIME capable. Maybe things like Evolution, and there are maybe some Android clients I don't know about.
So about 10, or is that?
At least 6 probably. Maybe more.
Or something between 5 and 10.
So let's get the test messages together, then we can ask the list.
Back in the day, I guess we did do these things called implementation reports. and one of them was done for CMS, and there's a whole bunch of implementations that are listed in there.
I can't hear you, sorry.
I have no idea.
Sean,
what
you're
are
not
listed.
talking to the microphone.
So way back in the day, we did these things called implementation reports when you move standards along the standardization path. And one was done for CMS. And so I believe that there were 9 implementations. I have no idea whether they're alive or not, but I can certainly provide the pointer to the thing about what it tested. Yeah.
So I think we need 6 messages to do this. Signed, encrypted, signed and encrypted, and the 2 approaches. So it's
I can also
six,
generate triple
right?
wrap messages now. This is fun. 3 layers with header protection, you know.
I think I don't think we can answer the question that's being asked with less than 6 is what I'm saying.
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many weeks do you guys need to put together these?
I think it would help to have a deadline, so I would say a couple of weeks. So while we're still fresh after IETF.
So middle of December?
That's when I'm returning from holiday. Should I be involved?
That's fine with me. I'm happy. I can deliver test vectors for the approach that I documented in that several of us documented in this draft AutoCrypt lamps. I can probably deliver them by the end of the week. This week.
Well. So the question's the other 2, the other approach that we want to compare it to, right?
Yeah, I probably realistically would say next week I can do some stuff on this.
All right, a couple weeks is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
With the holidays approaching, but let's get this started so we can find out what we.
And I think my call for the people in the room and listening is, if you have your favorite clients that you really care about, help us, you know.
Then test it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, please, send me and Bernie and DKG emails, and we'll test it with your client.
Well,
Okay.
I can't be involved in the next 2 weeks because I will be in New Zealand having holiday. Question is, do I have to be involved?
Well, we can figure this out. You know, you can connect me to your coworkers, right? So we can.
Right. And you guys could sort that out, you know, not real time.
Right.
Just before you leave here, have a plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
then
I'm pleased we have a way to compare these.
yeah, that brings us some basis to choose a solution. So what I see is next steps. We already discussed on the second last, more research on the weird artifacts that we already decided now. I would like to close the open issues, but probably I'm not going to close them. So, well, I have to update on the first one. Do we need to confirm the set of requirements on the mailing list? I would suggest so. Reach out to implementers would also be a good idea. Maybe this can be combined with the current approach, like to see whether this is it. It's based on requirements, and update the requirements ID. And at some point in time, we should start on the solution ID. Okay. That was it from my side.
Okay. Thank you. So that is our one chartered item. The next thing we want to talk about is Hendrik with the CMP profile and update.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Okay. So I put the status
Here's
of both IDs into one presentation. So to be a bit quicker through this. Great.
Okay, we'll deal with it.
Okay, so this is the status of the results of the last 2 meetings. Already for the July meeting, I split the profile document into a profile and an updates document, as we discussed in Prague. I included since July the encrypted value exchange with encrypted key, as this was discussed as a preferred solution to enable envelope data for the encrypted key packages. Yeah, we started in the recharter, so we are in the queue for the IESG meeting in early December. And yeah, so we decided that the update CMP should be a standard track RFC at least, and we have some milestones for the rechartering. So I think we are on a good way. Okay, so status of the lightweight CMP profile since the last version from July. I mainly completed the content of the document, so I added the support of legacy PKIs, legacy CAs with transport of P10 requests. I added this quite large chapter on the central key generation and the encrypted transport of key packages with different key transport and key establishment mechanisms. I added the section on the delayed enrollment part with a polling mechanism, and I added some examples for support messages using this general message, general response feature of CMP. And so they are optional, but we know that there are quite some use cases where getting a CA chain, updating a root certificate with this quadruple of certificates, and getting some request parameters in advance to an enrollment. So there are some examples of how to utilize these general message concept in CMP. Yeah, what are the next steps for the profiling draft? So, of course, discussing feedbacks from different sides, from the working group and others, or also deciding on whether to incorporate. So we have a request response profile specified for enrolling to a new PKI. So it's quite academic. We could also use this for an existing already trusted PKI. But in CMP, this is handled with a different message type. So we could discuss whether to specify also this. So it's not really different to the one with a new PKI, actually. But we could address this as an optional one. If, yeah, I'm happy for feedback on this. For this central key generation part, if you want to make use of the symmetric key encryption, key management technique, you need to make use of a shared secret. If you have some one-time password mechanism that you also want to use for the MAC protection of the CMP message, you may want to derive a different shared secret from that one-time password for the key transport mechanism. And therefore, we propose to use this MAC, this password-based MAC parameter mechanism from the CMP MAC protection, even though it does not fully fit, and I left some comments in the draft, the profiling draft, and I'm happy for feedback on that, whether people think that mechanism fits. So there is a section on the transport of CMP messages for file-based transport. So I'm not sure whether to really fully specify that. Maybe I just do some references and some more general description on what to think about if you want to do the message transport on an offline or file-based transport. But yeah, if there is feelings about this section, please let me know. Then in the update CMP, I will come to that on the next slide. We added 3 extended key usages for use in CMP. And I would like to incorporate and describe how to make use of this in the context of the profile. So this is something I didn't manage to do since the last update. Yeah, we have some OIDs that are needed, especially for the support messages. They need to be specified and registered at IANA. And yeah, of course, the securities consideration, I have to think about whether to add new parts to that or not. And of course, polishing and typos are still to be done. Okay, any questions to the CMP profiling document? Okay. So the CMP updates is much shorter. So what I did since the last update, I added the section on these extended key usages. So we think 3 extended key usages are quite helpful. One to specify keys of a CMP certification authority, one for CMP registration authority, and one for a CMP key generation authority, specifically used when you have central key generation, because generating a public-private key pair on behalf of some other entity is a really specific role, and this, I think, should probably be identified. Yeah, I added the section, or I updated the chapter on encrypted values in the CMP document with regard to making use of encrypted key and therefore envelope data, but I kept it quite short, and the details on how to make use of it and how to implement it are then in the profiling document. Yeah, I did some minor generalization in 2 sections of the CMP document. One is on nested messages. So there is currently a sentence that you should only incorporate CMP messages of the same type in nested messages. We do make use of nested messages also for bundling messages on an array side to forward that, and we see it as a disadvantage if you are restricted to only incorporate same message types in one nested message, and therefore we would propose, or like to propose, to just delete the sentence. Actually, we didn't find any good reason why to restrict ourselves that much. The second part is while writing the profiling on the polling mechanism, we realized that the polling was not, or whether the PKCS10 certificate request transport was not covered by polling. And we thought quite a while about it. This is finally, I think, because a PKCS10 or P10 CMP message has no request ID and can typically only be used with one request in one message. And that is a restriction we anyhow have with the profiling. And we would therefore like to open CMP also for polling on P10 CRs in case there is only one request in it. So both are quite generic and general.
So I have a
parts.
quick question. I'm not understanding the reason for the extended key usage for a CA. You either have the cert sign key usage or the basic constraints with the CA value set to true to know whether it's a certification authority? What does this additional way of telling provide you?
So finally, if the CA signs the CMP message, you may not want to make use of the CA certificate and key for this, and therefore the CA may want to use a different key and different certificate, but still it's the CA that signs the message.
I'm not understanding the flow that you just described.
So to make sure that you are not using the CA key too often, you may not want to make use of the same key for signing certificate than for protecting CMP messages. And therefore a CA may want to use a different key and certificate for signing the CMP messages.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, so what are the next steps for this? Yeah, of course, discussing whatever feedback there is, and add the extended key usages to the profile document as said, adding the OIDs for these key usages and register them at IANA. Of course, at the security considerations part, there is a completion of the ASN1 module needed. Maybe I need some guidance on how to do and how much to really is needed to add to this draft. And yeah, of course, polishing and typos need to be done too. Yeah, so that's it from my part.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, it took me a second to remember this, but there's also a key usage for registrations authority and CMC. So you might look there, so you don't need to necessarily register a new one. You can just use it.
We could just use it, so that's a point of discussion.
Yeah.
As it is named CMCRA, I
would like to think that OID, that string is not encoded in any way that any normal human being would read, that it would be perfectly fine to just use the number.
I would be fine with that. Thanks.
Sean reads OIDs. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other topics we were going to talk about today, Michael Richardson on the RFC 7030 EST. I did not get any slides, so I'm assuming you have little to say.
Yeah, thank you. I posted a new document, which I think has Russ's nicely ASN module that Sean formatted nicely. Like, that's really it, right? There's a third issue that which there's errata on, and I'm not qualified to understand it at this point. So I'm seeking help for that. But mostly the working group said they needed to recharter and to adopt this rather short document. So please read it, and the chairs will do something, I hope, right?
A little bit of a backlog there. Right?
Yeah. So I don't think it's a big rush or anything. Just, that's all. Please read the document. And if you have some expertise on the third piece of errata, I don't. I really just don't get it. So thanks.
Sean, I posted your slides, but they're not appearing here. You got to reload the whole agenda page. There it is.
Hello, my name is Sean Turner. These slides should look very
There you
familiar,
go.
as they are exactly the slides that I presented at IETF 105. So, why am I here? 5480, Section 3 provides some information about key usages for the subject public key info for IDEC public key, IDEC MQV, and IDEC DH. But only 7 of the 9 values are described. That seems like a flaw. So we'd like to fix that. So what we're proposing is to provide new requirements for the key encipherment and data encipherment to say that they must not be set for those things. I will channel Ryan Sleevey, who is not here, who said, yes, please, this has caused us problems in the past. Please do so. So that's it. The draft is like literally a page long. With the extra boilerplate from the IETF, it's maybe 1.5. Please adopt me when you can. I will send a message to the mailing list once I sit down. Yeah, that's what I want. Thanks.
We're way running out of time. We have less than 5 minutes, so I'm not even going to put my slides up. Just going to say there's a CMS update for algorithm protection document. If you have CMS embedded in your brain, you'll understand quickly that when there's 2 hashes computed to sign a message. One is you hash the content, that value gets put in a signed attribute. Then you take all the signed attributes and compute the hash over that, and that's what gets signed. The issue is that with the number of hash algorithms we're getting that have all the same lengths, it might be possible to do a hash substitution attack if it turns out that one of these hash algorithms is weak. So the proposed text says, use the same hash algorithm in both cases, don't get tricked, and points to RFC 6211, which is include a message that has the identifiers for the hashes as well as the hash values themselves. That's it. It's kind of a situation where we used to have only one algorithm that was 256-bit long, and that is no longer the case. And so we just want to include the algorithm identifier in the protection. Max, you asked for some time in the if time allows, and I'm going to say time is not allowing. So that's, I believe we've reached the agenda end because of that. I don't think you could have gotten your point across in 3 minutes anyway. So is there any other business than Max's presentation that will take less than 2 minutes? In that case, we're done, and have a good dinner. Blue sheets, can somebody bring them forward?